You're listening to the Better Husband, Father, and Man podcast, a show dedicated to empowering, encouraging, and equipping you to become exactly what our title says, a better husband, father, and man. I am your host, Michael Vance Jr., and I am joined by my co-host and father, the original Michael Vance Sr. Dad, will you welcome everyone?
Hey, everyone. Welcome. How are you today?
Doing all
How's
right.
everybody? Yeah.
I think we'll assume they're doing well. How are things going with you, Dad?
Great. Had a great week this week. A couple of projects ending around here. A couple of house projects that I've completed. Getting ready to go for a bike ride this morning. Hopefully that's going to be a great ride. Looking forward to getting out. Weather's turning a little bit here in Huntsville. So starting to warm up. So yeah, I'll be spending more time outside. So therefore, that's why I got my bike riding. So as soon as this podcast is over, boom, I want to bike, get a couple rides, get a ride in. Yep. How's everything with you?
And yeah, so we just keep going.
Well, this week, Ardella and I will be heading out of the country. So we'll be heading Central America. So that's coming up this week. So we'll be going for about 10 days. Yeah.
That sounds fun. Well, y'all, I know you sent me the itinerary, so looks like y'all going to have a good time. So enjoy. Yes. All right. So our topic this week, we were kind of discussing prior to, start hitting record, just previewing. There was a lot of controversy this week with statements made by a particular, I could call her media personality, name's Ebony K. Williams. But she had a conversation. She was doing an interview with Iyanla Vanzant. And during that conversation, Iyanla, I think they were talking about dating or marriage. And Ebony is an older woman. Let me not say older, because I know that's already triggering for some people. But she's a media figure. She's a professional woman, lawyer. She owns a media company, very involved in the media space, and so she's not married. And Iyanla had asked her a question like, would she date a bus driver? And Ebony's response was, if he owned the bus, or if he owned a bus company, or something like that. And that statement, and I think some of her subsequent statements, just caused a lot of controversy, where she was accused of being classist and, like everything that's wrong with, she was denigrating black men and all this other kind of stuff because of her statements, and that she used the terms average and mediocrity and these other things in some of her comments or subsequent comments that kind of rub people the wrong way about, women of a certain, we'll say this, maybe even generation, but just like of a certain professional class, maybe their views on dating men, and what they're looking for in terms of the type of man that they're looking for. It's got to be this and that, and there's a lot of conversations that have been had about that, and it's not necessarily to retread and rehash all of that, who's right, who's wrong, anything like that. But we did want to we were just talking about the broader conversation of like like the reality of maybe a relationships at a certain level in life, at a certain stage, right? And you made a comment about, professionals, man or woman, being realistic about what that looks like for a relationship, right? And so kind of just, that's me setting the background and setting the stage. And so I wanted to give you the first words after I've sort of set that up and just kind of like share a little bit more of your perspective on that. And then I'm going to come in with some more, questions and kind of, have the conversation. So what were you saying when you were talking about professionals and having a successful relationship or marriage in particular?
Right. So Ebony K. Williams, I think that's her name. I kind of went on Google. She's a very attractive woman, very beautiful. She's intelligent, obviously. She's successful financially, apparently, with her businesses. So she has a lot to offer. Any man that's looking for a woman see her, and single guys probably want to pursue her. She would be definitely something that catch your eye. You look, wow, oh, who's that? Then go talk to her, that kind of thing. So she would definitely be a good catch. I would say that first of all. But I really believe when it comes to having long-term relationships, not just dating, and I think you use the word dating, and I think professionals date a lot because they don't have time for real relationships. Real relationships takes time. And when you own businesses, you're professional, your time is limited. You've already committed to those relationships, to your building your business, to your career. You've already made that commitment. Therefore, your relationship is going to take a second backstage to that. They're not going to be up front. And so just them being honest about dating, and I think that's the word, they're just dating because it's not going anywhere. It's just, we're just finding someone that's on my level, that if I want to go to Hawaii for a weekend, they can say, hey, meet me in Hawaii. I got them. Boom, we're there. And that's what they're saying. They want somebody that can do things with them. That's hard to find. But I do think it's possible. Yeah, if that's your expectations. But if you're going to have a meaningful relationship where you think about getting married, that's a different mindset, because now you're saying you're willing to give up something for that relationship. Well, mainly it's going to be your time. So I think my point of view is that dating, fine. If you want to date different people, have expectations. If you got this multi-million-dollar business, you're attorney, you're just not going to date somebody driving a dump truck. I mean, you're just not going to do that unless he owned a dump truck company. Again, I get it. That makes sense. But if you're talking about having a marriage relationship, then whoever that is, you're going to have to be willing to give up some of your time to make the relationship work. Are you willing to do that? And I don't think a lot of professionals realize how hard it can be in terms of giving up time to, especially to pursue a relationship when you already got everything going on. I mean, you're living your best life now, your career and everything. And now to stop that, to have a relationship, and somebody's not going to be thinking like you and agreeing with everything you want to do. So do you really want that in your life? What do you think?
And so one of the things I wanted to clarify, I don't think you're not making a distinction between man or woman. I think you're saying any professional person.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to make that distinction, because I think a lot of people, like women professionals, try to make some distinctions between like the sexes as far as that. And I think one of the issues that we see now is that there is there's this expectation that there's still sort of the expectation, right? The traditional gender roles, right? Where the woman is supposed to, stay at home and take care of the family and the kids and that sort of thing. So in that sense, right, there's an expectation. Sometimes it's subconscious that that's what a woman's going to do, right? And so if you have these two professionals, and the woman's is expected to give up her career, and she might not want to feel that way, right? And so that being said, she might need to understand that you being with someone who has the same ambition as you, they might not want to give up their career. And what you're saying is somebody's going to have to do something. Somebody's going to have to sacrifice. You're both going to have to sacrifice a bit, but maybe someone's going to have to sacrifice a little bit more once you have kids and once you want to, pursue a more, long-term relationship. There's going to have to be some sacrifice there. And so who's going to do that, and being realistic about that, that's actually going to have to happen. And I think oftentimes right now, there is more of a debate about who should be doing that, right? Because women can out-earn men. And one of the things that I've had this conversation with other friends about is those traditional gender roles are not necessarily the same, because we do have women that are out-earning and they're out in the workplace. And so I think there should be a little bit more of a nuanced conversation about gender roles, about sacrifice, about, how do we accommodate both partners in this relationship if they're both working, right? If your spouse, your partner doesn't want to work and you want to support them, by all means, and y'all are good with that, great. But if both people want to work and want to pursue their careers, then there's going to have to be a level of sacrifice that I think both have to negotiate about. Um, and I think sometimes it's harder to do that when you've been single your whole life getting to that stage, and then you're now at the point where you've already established that you're super successful, maybe in your late 30s, your mid 30s, whatever, maybe in your 40s, whatever. And now it's like, now I have to combine this, and I've been doing me for so long, it's hard to want to give that up. Whereas if you've been with someone for a while and you sort of built this thing together naturally, as your relationship develops and you've taken on new things, I think you have that negotiation at the outset, right? Hey, we're looking to do this. Well, how are we going to, what is this going to look like? We're having those conversations together. And so you can negotiate that, sacrifice and ebb and flow. Whereas when you're starting to build something new, it's sort of like you go for you're playing chicken and see who's gonna like give in first. And that's harder to do at a certain level to establish that relationship. And so maybe to your point, maybe it's just easier to just date, like you said. It's convenient for me right now to go out with you, so I'll do that until it's not convenient anymore, and then we'll move on. And that's just what it's going to be. And I think that that's maybe a reality that most people maybe don't want to accept. That's it's hard to, like you said, sacrifice in the way to have a meaningful relationship.
Right. And I think that's another reason you'll see a lot of, especially men, professional men, attracted to women that they work with. The reason for that is because they see them 8 hours, 10 hours a day, 14 hours sometimes. And they see them, they're spending time, they're eating lunch. And they end up, hey, let's go get a drink after this. Let's go get some coffee. Let's go do this after work. And they, so it's a natural, because they're spending that time there. And so you can develop those relationships from work a lot easier. That's why people, usually entrepreneurs, end up marrying women that work with their company. Or if you go back and look at, they can have this conversation, so they're talking about work, what they do all the time. And so that brings them together. So if there's some natural chemistry there when it comes to work, yeah, you could probably work those things out. And it might feel more like a negotiation, a business negotiation than a relationship, because it's just kind of convenient. But that's just, the reality is that's where your time is being spent. Whereas I think when you find people wanting to raise a family, when you think about raising a family, having kids, that's a different, somebody got to get them to school. Somebody got to be there with them 24/7.
Yeah.
It should be you, one of the parents, somebody going to have to do that. And how do we do that together? And so I think when you got two professionals willing to date, that's one thing. But if they're starting to move forward and have a meaningful relationship, they got to have some conversations about time and time freedom. Okay, who's going to spend the time with this, making this relation work? Somebody has to do that. And if one person is doing that, sacrificing their time for the relationship, then the other person has to understand that, give them some grace in some areas. So that's all. And that's professionals. Just that whole profession. They don't work. A lot of them don't. In the music industry, in the business industry, most of those folks that 3, 4, 5 married 5, 6 times, it's just not working for them because it's difficult. That should tell you it's difficult. Yeah. So you want to win in your relationship. So take your time. Be ready for it. Be ready for the time that's going to take to invest in this person. And then if you're willing to do that, I think it'll work. I think the other component that you don't hear about, and I'm just going to say this up front, I think there needs to be a spiritual connection up front where you both are coming together, because there's a spiritual connectivity that you have. You can pray together when you have problems. You get this. That will keep you together as well. And that needs, in my opinion, that needs to be the foundation of a meaningful relationship going for. And for its expectation, somebody that is in place, that's locked in place. If you don't have that, and you've got all your money, you've got all your attorneys, you got all your bankers, you got your CPAs, you got all these other relationships, but you don't have a spiritual relationship as the foundation, it's just not going to be able to have the intimacy that I think marriages need. That's
Yeah.
just Michael Vance. I mean, that's one guy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's worked for me. Being able
Yeah.
to pray with my wife on our knees when we were raising kids every day on our knees, raising our kids. We prayed together. Lord, help us make it through this. How, and so we did that together and having shared goals. So if you're talking about professionals, it's funny though. Professionals talk about relationship. They're worse. They're the worst people to have relationships with. You don't want them because they are never busy. They're busy. They're always busy. They never take time for the relationship. They'll tell you. They always say, "Well, that's why I'm so successful. I'll make these commitments."
Yeah.
Like, shut up. You're bad with
So-
relationships.
So let me share my own experience, right? Because for me, I guess you could say now I'm a professional, right? When Kira and I when we first started dating and we were married, right? We started dating in college, got married for